Yes, ma'am. Talk to me. Talk. No, ma'am. Talk to me. Talk to me. Well, you're going to have the opportunity to do that.
And bullets ripped through a house. There is no understanding. There's no explanation. There's no answer.
This is 11-year-old Janiyah Scott. In 2019, her life was brutally taken away by this teen, 17-year-old Stephen Powell, as he was firing at her home.
She didn't die of natural causes. She didn't, have any type of illness. She died from violence, from a bullet that entered her body.
But what really happened? And what led to him doing something so despicable to this innocent young girl? How did law enforcement catch up to him? Let's explore this and more in the tragic case of Janiyah Scott. On June 23, 2019, at around 1:30 a.m., police in South Carolina responded to a home on West End Avenue, Anderson County, where there were reports of guns being fired. When they arrived, they were met by a 20-year-old man who was on the porch screaming for help. A distraught woman, later identified as Marshella Rice, was kneeling beside a young girl inside the house, begging the police to please help my baby. The young girl was 11-year-old Janiyah Scott, a 5th grader who had big plans for her future. Just a few weeks ago, as the 11-year-old was preparing to leave Whitehall Elementary School for the summer and transition to Robert Anderson Middle School for 6th grade, she wrote an essay about what she intended to do with her life. I want to graduate high school with honors and a good GPA score. I have to work really hard to earn those grades. They are not just going to give it to you. You have to work hard and earn it. She wanted to be a cosmetologist and open her own shop, and had even narrowed down her college choices to 3: the University of South Carolina, Clemson University, or Duke University.
I have a wild future ahead of me, but I gotta work hard to accomplish my goals for college and high school.
But that future she dreamt of was now bleak as she lay bleeding in her mother's arms. Being a weekend, Janiyah had stayed up late with her 18-year-old sister and 11-year-old cousin. The 3 girls were sitting on the couch, probably watching TV and enjoying their night, never thinking that the danger lurking outside would find its way inside the safety of their home. But it did, in the most unimaginable way, when someone started firing at the house. The 3 girls.
And bullets ripped through a house. There is no understanding. There's no explanation. There's no answer.
Janiyah's mom, Marshella, was asleep in her room when she suddenly was woken up by the sounds of gunfire.
The mom was in the bedroom sleep. She heard the gunfire. She ran in the living room, and immediately after she saw that Janiyah had been struck with a bullet, she tried to administer CPR.
Can you imagine the terror and shock she must have gone through when she found her daughters and niece injured by bullets while inside the house? This is something that no one ever thinks would happen to them, especially when you have no enemy and your country is not at war. The bullet that hit Janiyah went through her right shoulder and severed an artery, causing her to bleed out. All 3 girls were rushed to the hospital. Janiyah and her cousin were both in critical condition, but sadly, there was nothing that could be done to save poor Janiyah. She was pronounced dead at the hospital an hour later. The sister and the cousin both recovered from their injuries.
Police in Anderson are out in full force as the investigation continues. They are looking for the person who pulled the trigger, who injured 2 individuals and killed an 11-year-old. While the family of Janiyah Scott continues to mourn her death, police are out in the community looking for answers and suspects.
This was just a very tragic, senseless incident.
She didn't die of natural causes. She didn't, have any type of illness. She died from violence, from a bullet that entered her body.
Janiyah's death hit the community pretty hard. They could not understand how someone in their right mind could fire at a home full of children, knowing pretty well what would happen. And who would do something this stupid and dangerous? Why did they target Janiyah's home? And what were they hoping to achieve by their actions? The entire community wanted answers, and investigators were determined to find them and bring justice for Janiyah and her family. They asked anyone with information to please come forward.
We have got tips coming in from Crime Stoppers, but we need the public's help to actually cross that T and dot the I.
Investigators say someone shot into this home on West End Avenue around 1:30 early Sunday morning, killing 11-year-old Janiyah and injuring 2 other females, an 11-year-old and an 18-year-old.
We seek the truth.
Today, the team of detectives, narcotics officers, and street crimes units are working to canvass the neighborhoods.
Meanwhile, a heartbreaking vigil was held to remember Janiyah, who was described as a bright and ambitious young girl who loved school, singing, and dancing. She also loved her friends and family, and also the color purple.
She just seemed like a wonderful child.
The vigil was attended by hundreds of people who came to show their support and comfort her distraught family.
Y'all broke my heart with this one.
The pain, grief, and tragedy leaves her feeling almost empty inside, but definitely not alone. Hundreds of people, friends, strangers, police officers gathered at Lindley Park to remember Janiyah, a sea of purple shirts and balloons.
I don't want nobody's sympathy. I don't want nobody to feel sorry for me. I don't want nobody to feel bad for me. I just want to know why y'all took my baby from me.
Janiyah's mom, Marshella, had one message for the people who killed her little girl.
And every day you're going to look. You're going to see my little girl's face when you close your eyes. And your kid's face, Janiyah's face is going to be there. She's going to torture you to death. She's going to make you sick. That's how spiritual she is. She's going to make you sick until when you're going to turn yourself in, because I'm going to get justice for my little girl.
It was revealed that Janiyah was actually on the phone with her best friend when the gunfire started.
She said somebody is outside shooting, and the next thing you know, the phone drops. And so now her best friend, who's also 10 or 11 years old, has to live with that as well.
Janiyah was buried on June 23rd in a purple casket. Her funeral was paid for by NFL player Shaq Lawson, who plays for the defensive end for the Buffalo Bills. He said that he had a sister around the same age and felt called to pay for her funeral. He also called for justice and asked the person responsible to come forward. Whoever did this needs to come forward and tell the truth. And whoever's hiding, it's wrong that you're hiding. This is a little girl who is gone. It's just pointless killing people, killing an innocent child. She was at home, a place where she was supposed to be safe.
Thousands attended her funeral. Tracy Fant with Freedom Fighters Upstate says the service seemed so unnatural.
All the cries and the people mourning and her friends there at her casket, just the total visual of it, it was very, very heartbreaking.
Investigators determined that 2 weapons, a pistol and a semi-automatic rifle, were used in the incident, which means that at least 2 people were involved. And they had fired over 35 times at the house.
37 shots fired into the home. And it appeared to be that the person or people sort of walked around the front of the home.
Just over a week into the investigation, police got their first break in the case, but not in the way that they would have expected. Just a week after Janiyah was killed, someone by the name of Brandon Sticks Powell posted on Facebook. Late Saturday night on June 23rd, 2019, I killed a little girl, Janiyah Scott, because someone thought it was okay to rob me for what I had, and I wanted to take what that person had. The reason I am saying this now is because I feel so guilty and can't go on like this. My prayers to her family. I am so sorry. The post was removed almost immediately, but not before someone took a screenshot of it. Then another post came up. Whoever playing on my page stopped playing on my life. I did not post that, and I have nothing to do with any of that. Someone hacked my page. A few hours after this post, police arrested 17-year-old Stephen Brandon Powell in connection to what happened to Janiyah.
Anderson police have made an arrest in the homicide of 11-year-old Janiyah Scott. She was gunned down in her home in a drive-by 10 days ago. The house sprayed with more than 30 bullets. The suspect right there, 17-year-old Stephen Powell, who was picked up in Spartanburg County overnight. The arrest came just hours after an interesting post on social media popped up last night. A confession on a Facebook page belonging to someone with the same name. Well, police say Janiyah was killed when Powell and another person fired 35 shots into her home on West End Avenue. The coroner says she was hit in the shoulder and severed an artery.
There's not much information about Stephen or his background, but I did find a petition by someone called Andrea Powell, who I'm thinking is his mother or a close relative, and she claims that Stephen was wrongfully accused. Stephen B. Powell has the support of not only his family and friends, but his community leaders as well. All of the listed names believe in his innocence and believe he should be released on bond to show those of his opposition that he is an honest, well-functioning functioning and good-hearted member of society. Stephen Powell is a young teen who, at the age of 17, was wrongfully accused of murder and attempted murder. Powell, who was just on the verge of starting adulthood, was taking steps to secure his future. Taking away his chance to do so would be robbing him of achieving his full potential and cheating this community of the contributions he could potentially make. Stephen Powell should be released on bond because not doing so will only add to the statistics of wrongfully accused persons in America. But is Stephen really innocent? Did law enforcement get the wrong guy? Well, according to investigators, this was not the first time that Stephen was getting into such kind of trouble. Just a few days before the incident with Janiyah, police in Welford County were searching for him after he reportedly fired at an apartment and almost a little boy.
He was also questioned and identified by police as an initial person of interest in an apartment shooting in Welford. He was cleared and never charged, but these pictures were even put up on social media when police were looking for him after a bullet went through this wall and came inches from striking a little boy.
It does not surprise me that he's involved in something like this. When we interviewed him, he was very manipulative. I believe he knew a lot more about what was going on in our case than he let on to believe. And so it does not surprise me that he is involved in something like this.
Stephen's bond hearing was in July 2019, and Janiyah's family members were there to face him.
High tension inside this Anderson courtroom as we get our first look at Stephen Powell. Handcuffed, draped with a bulletproof vest, and surrounded by several officers, he didn't say much.
Yes, sir.
The hurt and disbelief are targeted toward Powell, the suspect accused in a deadly shooting that killed 11-year-old Janiyah Scott.
On warrant number 00724, sir, you were charged with attempted murder. On warrant number 00726, sir, you were charged with murder. Y'all want to have a seat, or there's not enough seats? Okay. Want to say to you, thank you for being here. Want to thank everybody for being here. We'll get through this as quickly as we can.
Janiyah's mom could not wait to confront her daughter's killer.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am. Talk to me. Talk. No, ma'am. Talk to me. Talk to me.
I just want to know why.
Well, you're going to have your opportunity to do that.
Stephen was denied bond and ordered to stay in custody to await his trial. Meanwhile, the police were still convinced that there was a second person involved in the incident.
So we know we have more than one suspect. We're still asking for the public to assist us by calling into Crime Stoppers. There is a $10,000 reward that's put out leading to the arrest and conviction of the person involved. And most definitely, the Scott family, we are still keeping them in our prayers. We can't say enough about that, and again, the cooperation from the public in this case.
But it would take over a year for them to finally arrest 21-year-old Desmond Brutton of Spartanburg. He was also charged with 4 counts of attempted murder, 1 for each surviving person who was in the house with Janiyah, and for also possessing a weapon during a violent crime. He was picked up at the Spartanburg County Jail, where he had reportedly been held since June 3rd on an unrelated charge of armed robbery. He was brought back to Anderson to face charges in Janiyah's death. During his second bond hearing, Desmond claimed that he did not know why he was being charged, saying, "I don't know what for. I don't come down here." He even claimed that he didn't know Janiyah's family, saying, "I am just as confused as everybody else." When he said that, one of Janiyah's family members began to say something back to him, but a person standing next to her covered her mouth with her hand. The young girl was so angry that she stormed out of the courtroom, slamming a wooden gate behind her. He was also denied bail and ordered to stay in custody until his trial. Now, I couldn't find any information about the trial or whether the 2 accused killers took a deal, but I did find Stephen's inmate report, and it appears that he took a deal and got his murder charge reduced to voluntary manslaughter. He was sentenced to 30 years in prison for all 4 charges and is set to be released in 2046. There are still a lot of unanswered questions about Janiyah's murder. Like, how are are Stephen and Desmond connected? Why did they fire at Janiah's house? Who wrote that confession on Stephen's Facebook page? The confession indicated that the gunfire was aimed at a relative of Janiah as retaliation for a robbery. But the police have never confirmed this or answered any of these questions. Later, Janiah's mom said that the death of her daughter left her broken, but she still wanted to do something positive to honor her little girl, whom she called Baby Bob. I'm going to keep her memory alive. I want everybody to remember who Janiah is. What do you think about this case? Do you believe Stephen wrote that confession on Facebook, or was his account really hacked? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell button.